Welcome back. Well, on the virtual couch tonight, a man who's been officially declared an Australian legend. He's received the award as a member of the Order of Australia and the more advanced officer of the Order of Australia. He possesses one of the most innovative minds in this country, and business leaders use him as their sounding board for the development of new projects. But Kevin Sheedy, of course, made his mark, so to speak, on the VFL and AFL field, winning 3 flags as a player for Richmond, 4 as the long-time coach of Essendon, and all up, a total of 929 games over 47 years. Incredible. He invented the Dreamtime concept, the epic Anzac Day game at the G, and the terrible influence of Martians on results in games. And it was Sheeds who introduced that now traditional jacket wave of victory.
Look at Kevin Sheedy.
Great performance of Bombers.
I have never seen Sheedy like that, except for those premierships in the 80s.
Kevin Sheedy, welcome to the program.
Great to be on, Joe, Chris. I hope you're well and hope everybody in Australia is well.
Yeah, I hope they are too. Isn't it amazing, just looking at that, how much of what you did as a coach, both with the jacket and everything you did with Essendon, how much of that was replicated by other coaches, other teams?
Oh, look, honestly don't know, but look, it was a spur of the moment thing. Obviously, I was pretty excited. It was 1993, we beat West Coast, and that put us on top of the ladder with a chance, where we were probably 60-1 before the season started. So we were nowhere near it. To be honest, it was a very young side, very inexperienced. I had to get Tim Watson back out of retirement. He kicked the winning goal, the preliminary final, and then we actually won the grand final by 8 goals. So very exciting time in your life.
You are the master of innovation, and it's not just typical of sport, it's certainly typical and necessary in terms of politics and business. Why did you all of a sudden cotton on to the idea that you had to innovate as a coach?
Well, Essendon was a suburb in Melbourne surrounded by airports and racecourses. And not many people live in Essendon. It's a very small suburb. It's a postage stamp size. And you're going to be up against, eventually, teams like Adelaide and Brisbane and Melbourne and Sydney, Perth, so you can't sign up a recruit and you can't sign up a member on the tarmac at Tullamarine Airport or Old Essendon Airport. So we got on the plane and made the plane a positive, and we flew to every major regional city in Australia. And of course, probably got sensational crowds in these practice games only. And we got rewarded this year because we had the Dreamtime game in Perth, sold out in 17 hours against Richmond, my old club. And of course, that was also brought about by the colours of both clubs and the legendary Maurice Rioli and Michael Long. So to have 2 suburbs in Melbourne sell out in Perth, home and away game, was just fantastic.
Incredible. Tell us about the course you went to. Was it with Disney? It was about innovation and it had a great impact on you.
My word, I've got so many Disney books here, and the whole history of. I thought Walt Disney was a brilliant person. What he was able to do with his the characters. I mean, Mickey Mouse is a classic. He looks nothing like a mouse, yet we still love him. Yes. And of course, I thought the innovation course I did was just sort of like a sprinkling of ideas and so I just went out catching butterflies for the rest of my life, trying to find out what aren't we doing that we can do better, smarter, quicker, and so forth. I spent more money on books and bringing them home to Australia because I had a very limited education. Went into the army, went down to Milperra in southwest Sydney, obviously in the engineers. Had a marvellous 2 years in the Defence Forces. That's why I believe I owed the men that went to Vietnam, men and women in the Defence Forces, to celebrate Anzac Day better than what we were doing. So that's my thank you for the wonderful 2 years I had with a guy called Major Fiddock and all my leaders in the Defence Force. He became, I think, a Major General and probably the top 3 people in the Defence Force in my major. So had a wonderful time, and of course, in the end, I learned.
You mentioned there your time in national service. It has been a terrible year for some of our most elite soldiers, Kevin, and I'm talking about the SAS and the commandos who were mentioned in the Brereton report as war criminals and were prosecuted even before someone had sat down and worked out whether there was enough evidence to go into a courtroom. I thought that was horrific. What were your impressions of the way that was handled this year?
I don't think anybody here that have never been to a war zone would understand the treachery. The most dangerous part of a living human being is going over to help defend the democracy that we have in this country. So I find it extremely difficult for people here in Australia to make a judgment on that. It goes with whatever is on the table, and I think you don't have to be seriously lack common sense to understand that. We sit back here in the wonderful armchairs of the life we have, and that's one of the main reasons I've always appreciated our Defence Forces, our military people, and all our police and fire brigades. I think the only people who really understand are people that have been in Defence Forces.
Yeah, well said. You must be awfully proud of what you look at every year on Anzac Day on the MCG. A wonderful creation and a wonderful way to bring a younger audience into understanding what war is, what we don't want, and of course what we should appreciate.
Well, it's an education that that our younger generation haven't been really to war like my parents and grandparents have been in the First and Second World War, and my teammates and players that I played footy with that went to Vietnam. So I respect that enormously. I think that there's nothing wrong with creating a game with a general knowledge of and experiences of what other people have gone through. I've got one other major game I want to do, and that's to do with immigration, because I love to have the opportunity eventually to thank the people who have come from all over the world to help build our country. And if I can get that up and running within the next 3 to 5 years after COVID, they will understand, because, we had so many wonderful people come out to build the Snowy Mountain scheme. And just weren't Aussies that sort of rolled up. They were people from all over the world, architects, designers, engineers, labourers. We have such wonderful people come here, and all we do is we read about the people that muck up. And I think we've got to get over that. Park it, put it on the bus stop with Forrest Gump, and keep being positive and building our country.
I love that. I love that. One of the most unknown facts about you is that you desperately wanted to be Shane Warne when Shane Warne wasn't even born, but they wouldn't let you, Kevin.
Oh, look, I loved cricket, but mathematically they only pick one leg spin bowler, so it's sort of like saying, well, would you want to be a soccer goalie or a leg spinner? I idolised Richie Benaud, from a young man from Parramatta. When I was a kid growing up, I thought he just had class written all over him. And to me, I just made a decision. Look, in the old AFL or VFL days, there were 20 in a team, and in cricket, there's 11 with only one leg spin bowler. So there's 168 people my height. That's 14 players every 12 teams. That's 12, 14, 168 my height. So mathematically, that was the best decision to make.
The best chance of being someone. That's fantastic. In June this year, for people not in Victoria, in June this year, you penned a video message to the people of Victoria after yet another lockdown, because, after so much lockdown and restrictions that they went through in 2020, it was happening again. It was a real downer for the people in that state, and you penned a letter to Victoria. It was incredible. I want to play a little bit of it right now.
Dear Victoria, I know we've had our ups and downs. Our Facebook relationship status has been changed to it's complicated for a while now. True love isn't always easy, right? From the moment we first met, I was addicted. Love at first sight. Despite the fact that you could be quite erratic with your rain, hail or shine all in one day, I'm always in awe of your beauty. They say the foundation of any relationship is heart and soul, mutual respect, friendship, and Vic, we have that and more. Victoria, I love you.
Great concept, Kevin. I've got to ask you this. It really has, COVID-19, tested our resilience and our mental health, hasn't it?
Well, it has. My daughter did that for Melbourne. She's a producer, and her company produces all those little AFL players running around looking like Buddy Franklin and little sort of Gary Ablett Jr. So, amazing idea from the organisation. But I think that the thing that helped me and does help me, I mean, I'm a gardener, so I've got a beautiful garden here that I love, the Botanic Gardens in Melbourne, and trying to emulate that a little bit. But I think that the Army gave me the best education. Being, put into the Army for 2 years, living in a hut and saying, find another new life for a couple of years. I can handle, COVID quite easily, where some people may not. So it's a love and care for each other that you can put an arm around a person, ring them up and say, how are you going? No matter where your friends live, anywhere in Australia. I've got a lot of friends around Australia because I do a lot of public speaking in most of the cities and regional cities of Australia. And that way I can actually see my own country. So I'll say that I'm in, obviously, the last quarter of my life, and what I'm going to do is have a ripper last quarter, and I'm going to do that as soon as the Prime Minister says we're up and running again. We're into it.
Good stuff. We've seen a lot from politicians during COVID. The spotlight has been really on state leaders and the national leaders. We've seen the best and we've seen the worst, Kevin. What's impressed you most?
I think the Prime Minister's been quite steady. I think the Treasurer, Prime Minister, I think he's quite a brilliant young man. I don't know at all. I think Gladys has been very, very good. Because, New South Wales, with the most people, it will be very, very difficult. And I think that the other premiers around Australia probably need to lift a little bit in understanding. I mean, it's ridiculous. People can't go and see their loved ones dying. You just make sure they can. Yep. And that's leadership, about love and care for each other. And I don't give a damn about a rubber stamp rule. You protect the love and care for people and their families, and young kids separated from, unfortunately, their mum and dad interstate. That is just not on. And it wouldn't take much to sort that out. And look, if it's 250 times that it had to be done, well, damn well do it. It's just a lack of common sense. And that's the unfortunate thing. We don't have common sense. And I do a session for a school with common sense. We don't have common sense and attitude on our school curriculums, and that's something you want to have a decent look at, some of you educationalists.
Very true. Before I let you go, we've got to talk footy. What a grand final this is shaping up to be. Two, crucially, Melbourne teams together for the first time in many, many decades. But wouldn't it be a great fairy tale to see the Demons win after previously winning a grand final in 1964?
Well, I've been to nearly every grand final, obviously, except for, say, last year, obviously. Look, Melbourne was such a great team in that era, with Ron Barassi leading the club and Norm Smith. The Bulldogs were right there just before we were beaten. I think it was 61. So when you look back, it's over 50 years, both these wonderful clubs, really different sort of clubs. Melbourne are the elite in East Melbourne, Bulldogs, they're out there in the tough western suburbs of Melbourne. And of course, you've got white and blue collar playing here, I can assure you. It's going to be a sensational game because they both deserve to be there. They've been up on the first and second most of the year. Bulldogs have had to overcome injury, and Melbourne are desperate to win one. So I think that the Premier of West Australia is a very lucky man. And the people of West Australia deserve it because they've been a wonderful state for our game. Brisbane got one last year, a grand final, and I'm very pleased that West Australia's got it this year and made the better team win. And I think it'll get down to the wire. I don't think this will be a team. These teams will be right at each other right up to the last 3-4 minutes. And I'm just hoping that the umpire, the Martian, doesn't pay a free kick that's going to be talked about for the next 25 years. So
we don't want the Martians to dictate the result of the match, do we?
Well, look, I think the Martians get a bit uptight because the players miss goals that they should never miss. It is the one weakest thing. Standing shots and goals are the biggest weakness in our game. We kick angle goals. We can run faster. We're bigger, stronger, but the most simple thing of all is to stand and shoot a goal 35 yards out, 40 yards out.
Kevin Sheedy, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you on behalf of all the fans of not just sport and AFL, but also from business. You've been such an innovator and such an inspiration. Kevin, thank you very much. Enjoy your grand final.
I will, and I hope everybody else does. And good luck with the rugby league boys up there. I hope they have a great final series. And that's what really keeps our country together. The closest of our sports and our Olympic Games need a mention because they were just sensational. And the Paralympics were wonderful again. So we still have that beautiful spirit in our country of Australia. Cheers.
Well said. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.